And welcome to this public forum with the candidates for Morton County Sheriff. I am Robin Thorstensen with the League of Women Voters, and tonight I will be your moderator. This candidate forum has been organized by the League of Women Voters of Bismarck-Mandan and is co-sponsored by the Bismarck Tribune and Dakota Media Access. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that promotes the informed participation of all citizens in their government. The League does not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. Tonight, there are two candidates running for election for one open seat for Morton County Sheriff. Both candidates have joined us here tonight. They are Kyle Kirkmeyer and Dave Shipman. The audience is invited to submit questions using the index cards provided to you. Viewers at home can phone in questions by calling 667-3237 between now and 6:35 p.m. tonight only, September 30th. That number again is 667-3237. This is intended to be a respectful exchange of ideas. Our purpose this evening is to provide voters with information about the candidates and their positions on issues that affect the people of Morton County. Now let's meet our candidates. We did have a number draw to determine which candidate would go first. Kyle Kirkmeyer will be going first. You each will have 1 minute to tell us why you are seeking election for Morton County Sheriff. Kyle?
Good evening. My name is Kyle Kirkmeyer. I'm running for the office of Morton County Sheriff. I've been a long-time resident of Morton County. As a matter of fact, went to high school in New Salem, graduated from high school, and have been in Morton County most of my life, except at certain times with the patrol when I was stationed in other areas besides Mandan and Bismarck here. I'd like to be elected to the office of Morton County Sheriff to bring positive leadership, guidance, and professionalism to the office. The goal would be, and always has been, is to do the most good for the most people, which includes all of the Morton County residents. I have been associated with law enforcement in one way or the other since 1981, and public service has been my whole lifetime in my career since graduation from high school.
Thank you. And Dave?
Hi and good evening. I am Dave Shipman. Before I begin, I need to and want to publicly express my sympathy and my condolences to the family of Kim Bradner. Kim Bradner had been chairing my re-election campaign up until the tragic and sudden death this past weekend. I extend my thanks to Kim for his work in my campaign up until his untimely death. For those of you that know Kim or his family, to ask you to keep him in your thoughts and prayers. I've been in law enforcement for 29 years. I've got 21 and a half years experience with the City of Mandan Police Department, with 17 of those years being assigned to the Criminal Investigations Division. I'm currently on my 8th year as your sheriff. During my 29 years of experience, I've attained in excess of 2,200 hours of certified law enforcement training. I'm a graduate of the 1987 Law Enforcement Training Academy, and I've attended Bismarck State College and Minot State University. I have always worked hard to bring positive change. I have a great working relationship with employees, partnerships with employees of the law enforcement agencies, and our county commission. I want to continue to bring positive change to Morton County.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the questions developed by the members of the League of Women Voters, the Bismarck Tribune, our audience here tonight, and our viewers at home. For our audience to submit a question, please use the index cards provided on your chairs. Viewers at home can phone in questions by calling 667-3237 between now and 6:35 p.m. tonight, September 30th. That number again is 667-3237. Candidates have not been given advance copies of the questions. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond to each question. Please comply with our time restrictions so that we can get to as many questions as possible. Our timer will let you know when you are down to 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and then stop. Shall we begin? Dave, what do you believe are the priority issues for the Morton County Sheriff's Department for the next 4 years?
Biggest issue is the crime rate. As you know, we did successfully pass a vote to get a joint jail with Burleigh County that will be constructed in the spring of 2015. And then getting some, working with the state and our combined joint jail on getting some mental health services to help reduce recidivism with those that have drug and alcohol problems.
Thank you. Kyle, same question. What do you believe are priority issues for the Morton County Sheriff's Department for the next 4 years?
The biggest thing is to bring positive leadership to law enforcement and to be able to work with other agencies in a positive light, going in a direction that's going to help all the communities within Morton County, not just Mandan itself, but bring the other communities involved and get them involved in the law enforcement and what they would like to see. And in their areas is to help them, obviously, is to go out there, reduce the crime rate, even though it's real good now. We want to keep control of that. There are issues with the jail that's coming up, and with looking at that jail, and there's a lot of work to do on it. And there's also the technology that should be looked at, so you can increase courthouse security, active shooter scenarios and things of that nature, to be able to bring a positive light to law enforcement to Morton County.
Thank you. Now, given that list of priority issues, what is the first issue you would address if you were elected Morton County Sheriff? Kyle?
The first thing here is to once you get into the office, is to bring, to get the structure. It's really what I'm about is trying to bring structure, accountability, discipline, respect, training, and teamwork into the law enforcement for Morton County. The issues, as I'm sitting on the outside right now looking in, and those issues were obviously some of that is with the jail and with the communication center that's being discussed at the moment, is that everybody has to take a step back and look at this and make sure that it's done right for all the people involved.
Thank you. Dave, same question. Of the priority issues, what is the first issue you would address if elected Morton County Sheriff?
Our rising crime rates and our increase in the sale and or use of illegal drugs. From 2012 to 2013, our drug arrests in the state have increased by 19.5%. That is an issue that needs to be addressed. We do have a local narcotics task force that in the last 8 years has seized nearly 900 pounds of illegal drugs, working in cooperation with the North Dakota Attorney General's comprehensive drug plan. And then the crime rate, reducing the crime rate, crime prevention, and being proactive versus reactive.
Thank you. You both brought up the jail, so let's jump right into that topic. How will the new Bismarck, Burleigh, Morton, Mandan jail work? There will be more cells. What, though, will be the results, intended or otherwise? Dave, we'll begin with you.
The jail issue was not a decision that was made in a short time span. We'd been working on a proposed jail from about 4 years ago with the increase of jail populations between Bismarck and Mandan. Both commissions looked at supporting either adding on separately to our own jails or doing a joint jail, and that's where we got to where we're at, doing a joint detention facility. Morton County will have, as we know, 13% ownership in that joint facility. As far as a working relationship, the administrator of the jail will be the Burleigh County Sheriff, but there is myself, the Morton County Sheriff, and commissioners from both sides of the river that will be on the advisory committee for that jail as far as the operations of the center is concerned.
Thank you. Kyle, same question. How will the new jail work? What will be the results, intended or otherwise?
Well, the new jail overall is a good idea because the space is definitely needed because both Burleigh County and Morton County jail facilities have been, over their capacity. The jail has to be, the new correctional or combined center has to be, well, that's what it needs to be, is combined, and it has to be a cooperation between Burley and Morton County. And to make sure that, I would like to see, and to get on there to be able to see that Morton County gets its due, I guess, in coming to the jail, to make sure that Morton County and its residents are represented in a positive manner, to make sure it's a benefit for the county.
Thank you. Your response has triggered a question from the audience because of the merger of the jail, and there's been also discussions about a possible merger of dispatch and communications. Could you also talk about the pros and cons of a possible merger of Burley, Bismarck, Morton, Mandan Dive and Rescue? Kyle.
Okay, currently I am the team leader of the Morton County Dive Team, and have been for many years now. I've been with the dive team, the Morton County Dive Team, since 1985, when I was originally a Morton County deputy, as I started out back then. This is something with the dive team that can be looked at, but there's an issue between the two teams, because one is a sworn team. Burley County is a sworn team. Morton County is a volunteer team. To try to get that to mesh together it's going to take a little bit of work. I think as far as where you store equipment and things of that nature, we have always worked well in the past together, when it comes down to a mission. That is something that we've looked at and needs to be discussed further at this point.
All right. Thank you. And Dave, same question. Your thoughts about a merger between the dive and rescue teams?
It was proposed a couple of years ago. We had met with, Kyle was part of that committee, with Burley County being brought to the table. There's pros and cons to any joint venture you do with any other outside agency. As Kyle mentioned, the Burley County Dive Rescue Team is all sworn officers. Our dive team would more than likely not. We would not have one had we not rely on volunteers. There's training issues amongst our volunteers with sworn staff. And then you also need to remember that with one dive team, we've got a large body of water that separates our facility, separates our two counties that we're responsible for. And in conjunction with that, we also respond to other outside agencies for mutual aid. So there's pros and cons to it.
Thank you. You both brought up the increasing crime rate, which brings up the next question. With incarcerations increasing in North Dakota at a faster rate than the population increase, how do you plan to address that issue? We'll begin with you, Dave.
I think studies will tell you that minimum mandatory sentencing does not necessarily reduce crime. More often than not, those people coming into any jail, whether it's Bismarck, Mandan, or across the United States, more often than not have either a drug and or alcohol problem. So I do think that there is some need for those type of services, mental health services, psychological services, to help get those people back on track, to get them away from the drugs and alcohol that got them there in the first place.
Thank you. Kyle, same question. With incarcerations increasing in North Dakota at a faster rate than the population increase, how would you propose addressing those issues?
The jail, well, there's a lot of issues with the abuse of alcohol and drugs, obviously, and drugs is a very big issue that's starting to show up more. Like a lot of the traffic stops that happen, people have personal use drugs on it. And it really comes down to education, and education from being back in, even starting younger in middle school and in high school, and what drugs actually can do to you and what it prevents you from doing in the future if that's the path you go down. It really comes down to education and trying to assist them people so that they can stay out of jail and clean up their lives and be positive for the future.
Thank you. Let's talk about the resources that can and should be available to officers when dealing with calls related to individuals with mental illness. Kyle. What resources should be available?
For officers, it really comes down to training, and training for psychological disorders, for Alzheimer's. We have victims of, not victims, but persons that have that, and missing call or missing people when they come out with Alzheimer's, and how to deal with that. And it's really, it's comes down to training of the officer and how they, as long as they recognize that it's a mental disorder right away, and then they can treat it that way instead of getting more physical with them, where physicality doesn't necessarily take care of the issue at that point. It needs a different approach on it, and it's officer training related.
Thank you. Dave, same question. What sort of resources can and should be available to officers when dealing with calls related to individuals with mental illness?
Speaking on my administration of our jail, we do have a very good working relationship with the West Central Human Service Center. I think the state overall is lacking mental health services. As Kyle had mentioned, training on for first responders, what to recognize psychological issues with those people that they deal with is big. And then for those offenders that have psychological issues or drug or alcohol issues, if they end up in the state penitentiary, there needs to be more services provided to them, because there is a long waiting list where a lot of them don't even get the services that are required or needed.
Thank you. Similar type question. What sort of resources should be available to officers when dealing with calls related to domestic violence? Dave.
Again, training. There is a predominant aggressor law in the state of North Dakota that officers are mandated to make an arrest on the person they believe to be the predominant aggressor. We have an excellent working relationship with the Abused Adult Resource Center, and then domestic violence shelters.
Thank you. Kyle, same question. Resources related to, for officers related to calls around domestic violence.
One is, obviously, like Dave mentioned also too, is the Abused Adult Resource Center, those type of issues or of resources that need to be called upon. I think training maybe between the hospital and the officers on mental health issues when they're brought in, to make sure that procedures are followed. There's all kinds of resources out there, and it really comes down to training of the officers and what the law says is about what needs to be done with domestic abuse, and that is, if anybody is involved in that, the option is that they're required to be arrested, and that it can be, but you have to look at what happens with them after that, not just arrest them and throw them in jail, and see what options they are to be able to help them at that point.
Thank you, Kyle. Let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about Western North Dakota and its impact this direction. As a result, are you aware of increased needs in Morton County because of the oil and gas development in Western North Dakota? And if you do see an increase in needs here in Morton County, how would you propose addressing those needs? Kyle.
The needs have definitely increased for Morton County for the fact that there's way more traffic in this area. There's more traffic. Bismarck is growing. Mandan is growing at a very good pace. Western North Dakota has seen a very large increase in out-of-state people that have moved up to work in the oil fields. This brings a whole new light to law enforcement, which we haven't seen in this area, and some of the impact that has with the drugs, with higher crime rates, with gun violations and things of that nature. We need to have deputies in law enforcement and have a good presence of them out on the road for the protection of the public. And the whole idea is to protect and serve, and you got to have the people and the manpower available to do that.
Thank you. Dave, your thoughts about, is there an increased need as a result of oil and gas development in Western North Dakota? And if so, how would you address those needs?
Yes, the last legislative session, the state had provided $16.6 million in oil impact grant funding dollars to oil impacted counties. However, non-oil impacted counties could also apply. I'm proud of the fact that Morton County was a non-oil producing county, however, and we applied for 3 full-time deputies, 3 full-time or fully equipped vehicles to help address the needs of Western Morton County. We, as you know, we do border Stark County, and we were fortunate enough to get one. We have, with the increase in staff, we're able to go to a 24-hour patrol coverage for all of Morton County, not just the city of Mandan and surrounding Mandan, but all of Morton County, including New Salem, Glen Ullin, Flasher, Hebron, and Elmont. There is a need for more, and if the legislature would appropriate more funding, our office would obviously apply for more funding to help address those needs that are occurring in Western Morton County.
Thank you. Again, I invite our in-house audience to submit questions using the index cards provided by our volunteers, and television viewers can call 667-3237 during our forum tonight, September 30th, to submit their questions. So let's talk about the role of county sheriffs in working to identify and reduce human trafficking. Dave, what are your thoughts about that?
I think human trafficking has always been around. I think it's getting more and more prevalent in our state with the increase of people moving into our state. There is now a Homeland Security going around the state of North Dakota training law enforcement as to how to recognize those involved in human trafficking. Generally speaking, when our office or any law enforcement officer would get a call that there are some, generally speaking, females prostituting themselves, they need to go in there with an open mind and remember that those people doing that may not be doing that on their own free will, however being forced to in the means of human trafficking. So public awareness is number one. Number two is training for law enforcement to address those needs.
Thank you. Kyle, same question. What is the role of county sheriffs in working to identify and reduce human trafficking?
There's been human trafficking, with Homeland Security, there has been training on that being provided, and I have taken part in some of that training. I think human trafficking is probably more prevalent than a lot of people maybe realize in the public in general. And it comes down to officer awareness and to be able, if someone needs help and they happen to make a traffic stop or come across this, a situation of that, to recognize what human trafficking is, and that sometimes the people that are involved in it are either afraid or can't say anything to help themselves at this point. Training is a big thing to identify it and help those people get out of that situation if they want to. Some are in it because they want to and cannot be helped, but those that want the help need to get it.
Thank you. We have a question from the audience, and it's going to bring us back to the topic of mergers. And this is in relationship to the communications and dispatch center. Do you favor merging communication systems? And if so, what would make it work? Kyle, we'll begin with you.
Right now, I think it needs to be looked at as far as the communication centers. But I am, at this point, I'm not for the merger. It would be, because you got to have a redundancy, I think, in communications, and having all of your eggs in one basket, if you want to call it that. If something happens, even a public emergency of some sort, natural disaster, and you have everything in one communication center and that goes down, I don't think that's a real good plan. You got to have a backup plan. You need to have redundancy in this. All the communication staff, people do not have to be in the same location. However, they can be linked up virtually to be able to help each other. And I don't know if it's something that I need to look at into further, and if I get elected, that would be a priority to make sure that it's for the benefit of the people of Morton County and all the other counties that are, or agencies and cities that this involves in, which are the fire departments, ambulances of New Salem, of Glenallen, Hebron, of that they get a say in what the priorities are in this.
Thank you. Dave, do you favor merging the communication systems? And if so, what would make it work?
I think at this point, in the infancy stages of even looking at a joint communications, I can't say one way or the other whether or not I favor a merger or not. There was a proposed merger in the same issue about 14 years ago that failed on this side of the river. As we know, Bismarck and Burley has been asked or looking at expanding their facilities because of growth. With our joint jail being constructed, our plans are to renovate our existing jail where our dispatch center is currently located, and our intentions were to move dispatch and give them a bigger area so they have room for expansion. Again, we're on the very early infancy stages of exploring that. I think we also need to look at, rather than just a merger, can we remain separate and just share technology? I think that's also an issue that needs to be addressed because there's going to be some cost involved with a merger.
Thank you. Gentlemen, is there a place for military-grade weaponry in Morton County Sheriff's Department? Why or why not? Dave?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. It seems like when I started in law enforcement back in 1985, we were given revolvers, and as guns became, it always seems like the bad guys have bigger and more weaponry than we do. Every one of our officers are equipped with an M16. Granted, they're not used in every call, but I believe that law enforcement needs the resources such as military weaponry like that. And I'm speaking M16s. I'm not talking the Hummers and the tanks and all that. But we need to be prepared to protect ourselves and the community that we serve.
Thank you. Kyle, same question. Is there a place for military-grade weaponry within the Sheriff's Department?
Yes, there is, to an extent. You don't, like I mentioned before, and like what Dave said too, is that you don't need the great big, I guess, the tanks and stuff of that nature, and that's what we're not talking about. However, the weapons, like bulletproof vests, shields, things of that nature for hostage situations that come up, those weapons and those types of things are definitely making improvement, because it's all about officer safety when you get out there, and providing and giving the officers that are on the street doing the job so they have the protection so they can go home safe at night too.
Thank you. And that prompted a call from someone who asked the question, should a canine unit be added to the department? Kyle, you may answer first.
Yes, I do believe that there is room for a canine. Morton County did have a canine until a short period ago. So it definitely needs to be looked at to have a canine in the county. I know the Highway Patrol has canines and Bismarck PD has canines. It is something that is definitely needed especially with the drug movement that is happening today.
Thank you. Dave?
Yes, and in fact, we are in the process we have selected a canine handler, our next canine handler. We had a German Shepherd dual-purpose canine that was having some medical issues. We medically retired him back in June of this year. We do have funding available through our asset forfeiture account to fund the purchase and training of another canine. We are in the process of doing that. With the large amount of drugs, the drug increase being increased across the state and in Morton County, I think having a canine is a huge asset to our office.
Thank you. What's your commitment, Dave, to a safe, non-discriminatory work environment? Specifically, what actions would you take to ensure such an environment?
We have a policy on that within Human Resources, where employees, if they feel that they're unsafe, there are ways to report it. reporting it to their supervisor, reporting it to administration, and or reporting it to human resources and or any of the county commissioners.
Thank you. Kyle, same question. What's your commitment to a safe, non-discriminatory work environment, and specifically, what actions would you take to ensure such an environment?
Well, that non-discriminatory work environment is very, very important, not only, well, for everybody, for the employees that are working and everybody's health and safety in general. There needs to be policies on it, which the county does have policies and the procedures. Supervisors need to be trained in how to handle that if they get approached on that, and what to do and the steps that they need to take. So I think it needs to be training all the way from the officers to county employees to supervisors and to administration on how to handle it in a proper manner.
Thank you. Native Americans represent the largest minority in North Dakota. What would you do, or have you done, to ensure that they get fair treatment under the law in your county? We'll begin with you, Kyle.
This is a question that comes up, but non-discriminatory is across the board. So it doesn't. If you're a Native American, if you're a Caucasian, whatever race you are, you need to get the same treatment, and that just comes down into the fairness of law enforcement. It's a situation where discrimination cannot be tolerated if that's what's going on, and that needs to be the officers need to be accountable for that.
Thank you. Dave, same question. Native Americans represent the largest minority in North Dakota. What would you do, or have you done, to ensure they get fair treatment under the law in your county?
With the Sioux County and the Standing Rock Reservation being located just south of Morton County, you are right. We have a high degree of Native Americans in Morton. I do believe that all of our officers, as well as law enforcement across the state in general, are non-discriminatory against Native Americans, and I just would treat them the same as they would anybody else, and they're expected to be treated the same as anybody else.
Thank you. What do you believe are the best ways to reduce recidivism in Morton County? Dave?
Again, I do think the high probability, or we have a high recidivism rate. More often than not, those continuing to commit crimes are those that either have a drug and or an alcohol problem. As I stated earlier, there is a need for more mental health, more human service centers where people with those addictions can get training, or get treatment and addiction to help reduce that addiction they have to drugs and or alcohol, to help reduce them wanting to commit those crimes.
Thank you. Kyle, same question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. What are the best ways to reduce recidivism in Morton County?
It needs to be looked at, and I think you can go back and you'd have to do some data research on it to find out, exactly what our recidivism rate is and what the cause of it is. Is it more on the alcohol or on the drug side? And then address it with that. It really comes down to education on a lot of that, and that's why for law enforcement, our biggest thing is to go out there and try to educate the people on what is a greater benefit for them and society as a whole, and not necessarily law enforcement education. Public health is what takes care of. We don't do the treatment, and we don't necessarily diagnose that, but we have to be able to recognize that and get down to the causes to help them get on the right track. And law enforcement, like I said before, it's an educational tool to these people.
Thank you. We did have an audience from the audience question in which they would like us to circle back to the topic of the K-9 unit. And the question is, should the K-9 be dual purpose for patrol and drug investigation, or single purpose patrol or single purpose drug? Kyle, you may answer first.
Right now, I think the biggest need is for a single-purpose dog, not necessarily an attack dog. They need to be a drug dog or an tracking dog. But there's, if you get to German Shepherds and things of that nature, the different kinds of breeds of dogs are like a bloodhound for tracking, and the canines that are used for the drugs. But it's very important, I think, for right now to concentrate on just a single-purpose dog for use on drugs.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually going to continue with a follow-up question, and Dave, I'll give you the opportunity to answer both questions together as well. We also had a question regarding the fact that Bismarck PD has multiple canine units. In Morton County, if there's only one dog working and another call for help comes in, how would we handle that here in Morton County?
As it is done now, we use other agencies or would use other agencies available if they have dogs available. And sometimes that isn't, and then there's if you don't have the resource, you can't use it. So the biggest thing is having one dog and maybe having the possibility of having 2 dogs in the area. It's a pretty large county, Morton County is, and to be able to cover the whole thing 24/7 with the dog is almost impossible. But you use other resources that are available.
Thank you. Dave, I'll give you both questions and you'll have plenty of time to answer both of them. Should the canine be dual purpose for patrol and drug investigation, or single purpose patrol or single purpose drug? And then the follow-up question with that is, given that Bismarck PD has multiple units, if there's only one dog working here in Morton County and another call for help comes in, how would it be handled?
The first question, again, with the drug increase being on the rise, I think a single purpose is more beneficial to us. A dual purpose, I know, requires extensive training for the dual part, for the bite and to protect the handler. So I think it would be more beneficial to the citizens of Morton County to have a single purpose dog. As far as the second question, if we would only have one dog, we can't expect him to be on duty 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. However, they are available to assist not only our officers, but it's Mandan Police Department, the Highway Patrol, and then our deputies out west. If another call would come in, if our drug dog is not available and it would be needed, we would rely on the services of either the Highway Patrol's canine unit or the Bismarck PD's canine unit.
Thank you. And thank you for answering those audience questions. You've talked about a lot of areas that you consider priorities. What's the primary area of improvement that you expect to make that would positively impact or negatively impact the employees of Morton County?
Having an open door policy. I think I'm first, right?
Yes, sir, you are.
Having an open door policy with the employees. I hope I come across to my employees, my door is always open, that they're welcome or can come to me at any time. I have other supervisors that they're welcome to come to with problems or issues. And then we also have a great human resource director that they're able to go to, where we work well together to address any employee issues that may come about.
Thank you. Kyle, same question. What would be the primary area of improvement you expect to impact positively or negatively that impacts the employees of Morton County?
Well, if you bring in positive leadership into an agency, that's a benefit to the employees. And what I mean by that is to be able to have that open door policy, but you still need structure and a chain of command, which is also very important, and to follow that chain of command to get the results that you need, and to be accountable for that. But everybody, it really comes down to making and having your employees be part of the department. Not just a number, not just an employee, but actually have them to be able to have a say and to be able to listen to their, I guess, concerns and ideas that they have. Because a lot of them have very good ideas, and you just have to be able to listen and try to implement some of them. Everything can't be done, what all the employees want, but you have to be able to sit down and listen to them and give them that opportunity to help you improve the department.
Thank you. What do you see as the biggest strength the Morton County Sheriff's Department has, and how would you take advantage of that strength for the good of the people of Morton County? Kyle, you may answer first.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more
Certainly.
time?
What do you see as the biggest strength of the Morton County Sheriff's Department, and how would you take advantage of that strength for the good of the people?
The people. The people are the biggest resource, or the best resource that any department has. And for the county itself, for the deputies that are employed, there's very good deputies that are out there. What you need to do is just get them involved in the department and show them that, that you have a concern for them and their well-being and their families, to make sure that you get the positive work environment, so that everybody can succeed. Everybody's on the same, it's got to be a teamwork. Everybody's out there for the same goal, and for the public service to reduce crime, to go out there and help the communities thrive. And so it needs to be, and the environment needs to be a cultured environment that's going to help everybody as far as going in there and being a part of it.
Thank you. Dave, what do you see as the biggest strength of the Morton County Sheriff's Department, and how would you take advantage of that strength for the good of the people?
Being visible to the citizens, not only of right around Mandan, but the outlying counties or outlying cities, New Salem, Glenallen, and Hebron. We do have policing contracts with them where we have deputies actively living there, getting them involved with their communities, being accessible not only, again, to those cities, but all residents of Morton County.
Thank you. Our last question of the evening was provided by a caller. Why do each of you feel you make the best candidate? What are your qualifications in terms of service in the community, qualifications for the position? What makes you the best candidate? Dave.
As I stated in my opening statement, I have 29 years of experience coming into this position. When I took office in January of 2007, I did not have experience as a sheriff. It's been a learning experience for me. Repeat the question again.
Certainly. What are your qualifications, service to the community? What makes you the best candidate?
Service to the community. I'm involved with multiple organizations. I belong to the Mandan Kiwanis Club, where we focus on youth, of the youth of Mandan. My qualifications, again, 8 years as a sheriff. There's been some growing pains with me learning what the duties of a sheriff are, learning the jail, and I just feel like I've done a good job and want to continue to succeed in that job.
Thank you. Kyle, what would make you the best candidate, and what are your qualifications in terms of service to the community, involvement?
Okay, I've been involved in law enforcement since 1981. I went to BSc after graduation from New Salem High School. I have an associate in arts degree in criminal justice from BSc, which was BJC back then. And I also have a Bachelor of Science degree from Minot State University. I have been to the police staff and command school. I've been with the Highway Patrol for 29 years. I have over close to 4,800 hours of law enforcement training. That training, very high amount or extensive amount of training in search and rescue, in dive team, with swift water, with rope rescue, with diving. I'm a volunteer for the Mandan Rural Fire Department, have been with them since 2009. So I'm also firefighter 1 and 2 trained, which I think is also a very good help to the community.
Thank you. Candidates, thank you for being here tonight. You will now each have 1 minute to provide your final comment. Kyle?
Well, I'd just like to, the voters and out there to support me for the fact that I want to go out there and make positive change to Morton County and give the employees a chance to be part of the organization and to have a say in which direction that this is that it will go for the benefit of everybody in Morton County, and to make sure that the other communities, Glenallen, Hebron, New Salem, Elmont, Flasher, also get their say and that their concerns are heard as far as the law enforcement field.
Thank you. Dave?
First, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this candidates forum. It's truly been an honor and a privilege to serve as your sheriff for the last 8 years. It's a role that I carry out daily with humility, respect, and enthusiasm. As I said in my opening statement, I've always worked hard in my last 29 years for positive change. I want to continue to bring positive change to Morton County. And I ask for your support and your vote in the upcoming general election. Thank you.
Thank you. I wish to also thank the Bismarck Tribune, Dakota Media Access, and the volunteers from the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum. Thank you to the viewers at home and the audience members here tonight for taking the time to learn more about the candidates and the issues. This program will replay several times on Government Access Cable Channel 2 and will be available for online viewing at www.freetv.org in the days leading up to the Morton County Sheriff election. Before we close this candidate forum, I want to remind you that voting in North Dakota is very simple, and you can find voting information at your county auditor's office and from the office of the North Dakota Secretary of State. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you.